Hey there guys, I'm back to another video. Today I want to go and talk about my tier list of Sonic the Hedgehog games. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I saw this post going around the Sonic community on Twitter, and it was pretty much them ranking the games from S, A, B, C, D, and then lastly E tier. So I thought that was pretty clever, mind you, because that's how Sonic games are now ranked nowadays. Like at the end of a stage, it's either S or E rank. It's in that range pretty much. So ranking the games based on that system sounded like it would be pretty cool to share my own personal tier list with you guys and sort of explain as to why certain games are where and whatnot. But full disclosure, obviously this is all my opinion, and on top of that, there won't be a lot of classic titles, a lot of like the old Sega Genesis sort of games. There's going to be a lot of 3D and modern Sonic stuff, mainly because that's the Sonic that I grew up with and that's the Sonic that I mainly know. And on top of that, I have yet to play and finish Sonic the Hedgehog 1 through 3 and Knuckles on the Genesis. So call me a fake Sonic fan if you want, but there has still been a lot of Sonic games that I've yet to play just because there's so goddamn many. But anyways, let me just go and jump into my tier list. Here's my tier list in full, just to those that actually just want to see what my tier list is. There's a lot of sequels in here, as you can tell, with like Sonic Rush Adventure, Sonic Rivals 1 and 2, and the Sonic Riders series. So I'm going to explain a lot of these games. So first up, let's go ahead and start with the S tier. These are pretty much my favorite games in the entire Sonic the Hedgehog series, pretty much my top tier. So Sonic Unleashed, I think a lot of people would say that this game is really bad or maybe even mediocre or something like that, and not say that it is their favorite or even the best Sonic game out there. Personally, I love it. The reason being is because this is pretty much the Sonic game that made me fall in love with the series and the character. And on top of that, I honestly love the Hedgehog stages. The Hedgehog stages weren't all that bad. I honestly had no idea why people thought that the Hedgehog stages were so bad until I got much older, which I am now, and I understand that the daytime stages are really, really fun. They're super duper fast paced. You're pretty much speeding through the level, and then you get to these Hedgehog stages where it's a beat 'em up. It's very slow. It's not as fast, obviously, and the entire game is kind of split into those two categories of being the daytime and the nighttime. And personally, I love both sides, and I still do to this day. I haven't replayed the game fully since I finished it when it initially came out on the Xbox 360. Even like the Wii and PS2 versions, like those aren't that bad. If I had to rank that version, it would probably be like B or C tier, something like that. Just to go and keep that in mind, but I'm fully talking about the Xbox 360 and PS3 version. So yeah, Sonic Unleashed is still one of my favorite games ever since it came out. Sonic Colors, that is pretty much a go-to Sonic game when people want to go and talk about really good modern Sonic games. I mean, like, in terms of gameplay, it's like all just daytime stages. From Sonic Unleashed, you just take that and you put it on the Wii. That's pretty much it. The storyline, it's not as rich. It's not as in-depth. It's pretty simple. It's pretty much Sonic stopping Eggman from taking all of the Wisp, and Sonic is there to stop him. It's not a complicated story, but at the same time, most Sonic games nowadays don't have complicated stories, and really, a lot of Sonic games don't need complicated stories, in my opinion. They kind of just need to have something to motivate Sonic and friends to stop Eggman in a way. And Sonic Colors does just that. It has a very simple story, and on top of that, the gameplay is awesome. And of course, the soundtrack for Sonic Colors is one of my favorites. Not saying Sonic Unleashed doesn't have some pretty good bangers in terms of songs in there, but Sonic Colors is definitely one of my favorite soundtracks out there. And yeah, that's pretty much why Sonic Colors is up here, because gameplay is really good. Story, some people may complain that it's not as rich and as in-depth as the previous titles, but personally, I don't think we need that much of a complicated Sonic story, and the soundtrack is freaking awesome. Sonic Generations, I think that a lot of people can also agree that this is a pretty good Sonic game. It has Classic Sonic in there. This was the first time we saw Classic Sonic make a return into the 3D realm of Sonic the Hedgehog. And the game remakes and pretty much remasters a lot of the music, redone levels for the classic style kind of gameplay and the modern style kind of gameplay, which was really, really cool when it came out, especially leading up to the release of Sonic Generations. I was so hyped for this game. When you see the initial teaser trailer with Sonic, and he's just running, and then all of the sudden Classic Sonic's next to him. It's like, oh my god, they're doing it. And this was the celebration of Sonic's 20th anniversary, and I think that this was the perfect game for them to do. So Sonic Generations is definitely up there, solely because of the gameplay and the fact that Classic Sonic actually felt like Classic Sonic. Speaking of the classic game, Sonic Mania, this is the one of the latest Sonic the Hedgehog games to come out of recent months, and they are going to be re-releasing the game once again as Sonic Mania Plus to include Mighty and Ray as playable characters. But pretty much the base game is awesome, and I mentioned it earlier. I have not finished Sonic the Hedgehog 1 through 3 and Knuckles. And the reason for that is because I am really bad at the classic games. I'm not going to lie. But this game, for some reason, I'm actually not that terrible. And I was able to get through the game. I was able to finish it. I wasn't able to go and collect all of the Chaos Emeralds, but I still was able to get through the base game, and it was a blast. I love Sonic Mania. Tyson Hess with the whole animations that he's been doing lately have been awesome as well. But getting back to the game, I mean, like, they literally recreated what a classic Genesis style kind of Sonic game would have been made if it was made today. And I think that they did a fantastic job. And I cannot wait for Sonic Mania Plus and maybe even a Sonic Mania 2 in the future. Who knows? Because this is truly the Sonic the Hedgehog 4 that people wanted when Sonic 4 originally came out. Moving on to my A tier, these are pretty much games that I like, but not necessarily love. These are games that I have really fond memories of and just found to be really surprisingly good. So first up, Sonic CD. Like I said, I am not a fan. I have never finished any of the classic titles. When I played it on the Xbox 360, on the Xbox Live Arcade, I was like, all right, supposedly that this is a really good port of Sonic CD, so let me go and try it out. And I actually managed to finish it and beat it, and I was really happy with my experience with it. It was a fun Sonic game that I was completely surprised by. I did not expect to have so much fun with the whole going to the past and going to the future stuff and battling Metal Sonic and everything like that. Like, this was just a really good Sonic game. And if you're like me and you've been playing modern Sonic games all your life, try out Sonic CD. It is a really good classic Sonic game. And maybe I'll say that in the future about the Genesis titles. Who knows? Moving on, we got Sonic and the Black Knight. This is another game amongst the really bad Sonic games that people really hate, but I find myself really enjoying. Sonic and the Black Knight, it is a storybook series game, the last one in the series. It was Sonic and the Secret Rings, and now we got Sonic and the Black Knight. Why do I like this game so much? First up, the story was actually like decently good. I actually liked where the story was going, and like towards the end of the game, I was like, wow, that was actually really entertaining. I was enjoying myself when I was going through the Sonic and the Black Knight story mode and beating the Black Knight and everything like that. Like, that was just really, really fun. And also the gameplay, I really liked the gameplay. The whole waggling thing, like, that was just really fun to me. I have no idea why, but it was just a really fun experience. And to be honest, I would not mind going back and playing that game through even today, just because the gameplay I found to be really enjoyable and the story to be, entertaining. So, and also the soundtrack is not that bad either. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. I did not include Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed. Despite me owning that game, I have not played it thoroughly. But with Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, I played that a lot on my Xbox 360, and that is a game that is really good. It is definitely a Mario Kart ripoff, as people would call it. But if I had to pick any other kart racing game that's not Mario Kart, this would definitely be one of them to go and play. This is just a fun racing game. A lot of the items do take characteristics from Mario Kart, but at the same time you have Sonic characters. You got all these Sega All-Stars and everything like that, and it was just a really, really fun game, and I just enjoyed myself with that when it came out on the Xbox 360. Moving on, we got Sonic Heroes. This is a A-tier game because this is pretty much the first Sonic game that I ever played, and I still find myself to be a fan of this game. I really like the whole team mechanic sort of thing, switching between the three characters and going through each level, sort of that thing. I know that playing through all of these stories to go and get to the last story may seem a little weird, especially since you're pretty much going through the same levels over and over again with just slight differences. So that could be a little bit upsetting, but personally, just playing through Sonic Heroes, when you pick each story, it's definitely a different difficulty. Like Team Rose is the easy mode, Team Sonic's like the medium mode, Team Dark is definitely the hard mode, and Team Chaotix is like the mission based mode. So wherever you want to go and put that difficulty in. But yeah, Sonic Heroes, it just had really fun gameplay, and also the story with Metal Sonic was very interesting. I really liked that whole thing with like Metal Sonic actually rebelling against Eggman and him taking shapes and forms of Eggman as a character. So that was definitely very, very cool. But yeah, Sonic Heroes, definitely nostalgia reasons play a heavy effect into this game's placing on my tier list. Moving on to B rank, we got Sonic Rush, Sonic Rush Adventure, Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, and Sonic Riders. So I'll talk about Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure together, since I find both of them equally fun, and they're sequels, or like they're within the same series. One of them is a sequel to the other. But I find Sonic Rush Adventure just to be a little bit more fun, but it's not enough for it to be a rank game. But yeah, Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure, those were just really fun, fast-paced 2D Sonic games, and they were on the DS, and playing these games on the go and all of that good stuff, it was just a fun experience. I cannot say really much anything terribly bad about these games. Like I had a good time playing Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure. Even like doing like the touch screen sort of like special stages, like those were pretty fun. I really enjoyed that, the whole half pipe sort of thing. But yeah, and Sonic Rush Adventure adding that sort of adventure aspect by you going on the sea and creating a path for yourself and all that stuff. Even that stuff was pretty fun as well. And Blaze the Cat, still one of my favorite Sonic characters of all time, and I was glad that she was introduced within this series of games. Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 are at the B tier. I wouldn't say that they're like C tier, where they're like, they're games that I would completely want to forget in a way. But Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, they definitely have a spot within my, I guess, Sonic heart. I don't know. But they definitely introduced me to more 3D Sonic games, where the whole 3D Sonic thing started with Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2, and then Sonic Heroes, because I played Sonic Heroes first, and then I got into the adventure games later. And these games are, good in their own right, but they definitely have some flaws. For one thing, I hate playing as Knuckles and Rouge in Sonic Adventure 2, just because of the fact that they changed the radar system, and just those levels take so goddamn long. I would much rather be playing Tails or Eggman, and especially Sonic and Knuckles. I would much rather, or Sonic and Shadow, I would much rather be playing as them. But like the whole radar system in that game is screwed up. And then Sonic Adventure, you can argue that it's a little worse in terms of like character selection, because you have to play as not just Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, along with their counterparts. In Sonic Adventure, you got to play Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and then you got Amy, E102, and then Big the Cat. And Big the Cat was not that fun to play through. So there's definitely some aspects within these games that flaw within the gameplay, in my opinion. But still, the stories for these games were pretty much what elevated in terms of like what Sonic game stories can be and what they can tell. And I definitely cannot ignore that, especially since Sonic Adventure 2 introduced Shadow the Hedgehog, who is still a huge fan favorite character among Sonic fans. So yeah, story, I cannot ignore that. It has had a huge impact on the Sonic community as a whole, being a much more rich, much more in-depth story. And then on top of that, the whole 3D Sonic gameplay, pretty much where 3D Sonic started was with the Adventure series. Sonic Riders is at the B tier list, and I chuckle at that because it's another one of those guilty pleasure games of mine. The reason I like Sonic Riders so much is because once you get the hang of like what the game actually is, you'll have a lot of fun. And personally, the reason why I think that this game really suffered and the series as a whole suffered was because there was a huge learning curve when it came to actually playing the game. So like when you compare Sonic Riders to like Mario Kart or even Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, those games don't have a huge learning curve. It's kind of very simple. It's kind of very easy to go and pick up and play and learn what you're doing. With Sonic Riders, of course, you're on boards. And then on top of that, you need to learn about controlling your air gauge and, doing all of these different shortcuts and tricks and whatnot. You need to learn how to actually play the game. With Mario Kart and Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, you kind of just get into a cart and just go forward and try to finish all 3 laps before the next opponent does. In this game, there's a lot of different mechanics, and that huge learning curve definitely suffered this game's performance in terms of like critical acclaim. But personally, it's still one of my favorite Sonic games as a whole, and the huge learning curve definitely hurt the game a lot, but we'll talk about its sequel that did so much worse in the next 2 tier lists. But first, let's go and talk about the C tier. So first up, Sonic Forces. This is the most recent Sonic the Hedgehog game, and it is not all that good. Despite it using, the gameplay from Sonic Generations of classic and modern Sonic, you also have this custom character, which I am not a huge fan of. I hate the custom character levels. They just don't feel satisfying to me, and they're just kind of just like, all right, just get to the end. Like, that's pretty much how I feel when I play those levels. And like, even on top of that, like the modern and classic Sonic levels, like there's just flaws in them that I just did not like. So like with modern Sonic, the coins don't add to your boost gauge. Instead, you need to collect a wisp, which, for one thing, why are wisps still like relevant in the Sonic the Hedgehog universe? They should not be like they are now, where they're like sort of like power-ups. I feel like the wisp should be tied to the plot in some way, shape, or form, like they were within Sonic Colors and Sonic Lost World. They need to stop putting wisp in these Sonic games just for the sake of putting them in, And on top of that, classic Sonic in terms of plot, he could have not even been there. And then the gameplay for him, personally, I didn't find anything wrong with him, but a lot of people just did not like on how he played. He felt different, but all that stuff I did not find personally. But him as like a character in this game was just not needed. Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1 and 2, I'm going to be talking about these 2 games together. They were fun games. Like, I'm not going to lie. Even like Sonic Forces, to like a certain extent, like I was enjoying myself with that game. But with Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1 and 2, they were kind of fun games. Like, I'm not going to lie, the first episode, the physics in that game were completely out of whack. But at least with the second one, they improved the physics a lot. And, playing with Tails in that game was also really fun. But when it comes to actually being a memorable game, these games are definitely not even close. I don't even know any of the zones in both of these games. Like, if you were to ask me to name at least one zone from these games, maybe I would be able to do it. I can't even do it right now, so probably not. But, it's just sad that this was the Sonic the Hedgehog 4 that we received, and, we never got a proper conclusion with Episode 3, so I'm pretty sure that project is just abandoned, and now we're moving on to, bigger and better things like Sonic Mania. But yeah, these games, they were fun, but they weren't necessarily memorable. And that's what I really want to go and see from a Sonic game like with Sonic and Black Knight, That game was really fun, but on top of that, it had a memorable story, and I distinctly remember me playing that game a lot. So, Sonic Rivals 1 and 2. Once again, it's sort of like with Sonic the Hedgehog 4, Episode 1 and 2. These games were fun, but, it's not exactly all that memorable. There's not much of a story there either, so you're pretty much playing this game in terms of just gameplay only, and getting through the story mode for all of the characters, especially in Sonic Rivals 2, does take a little bit of time. So, you could, clock in some hours on these games. But when you're comparing Sonic Rivals 1 to Sonic Rivals 2, it's pretty much just there's more characters in Sonic Rivals 2. And the whole gameplay in and of itself was pretty much you just trying to get to the end. before your opponent did, and the CPUs in this game were exactly not all that great either. I think the main aspect of this game was you playing against your friends, but doing that with the PSP was definitely like, a little janky. But overall, Sonic Rivals, they're fun games. If you have a PSP and you find these games for like $5 for them together, pick them up. They're fun games, but they're not, going to blow your mind in terms of other Sonic games. All right, so now let's get into the D tier, which are pretty much really bad Sonic games, but they're not exactly terribly bad. I did get some enjoyment out of these games in some way, shape, or form. For example, Sonic 06. And what do you mean? What do you mean by I got some enjoyment out of Sonic 06? Let me go and explain. When it came to Sonic 06, you had the 3 stories: Sonic, Shadow, and Silver. When I actually played Silver Story, I actually was enjoying myself for a little bit. Despite the game being glitchy and buggy and pretty much rushed out of the door, the definition of a game being rushed out of the door, I still enjoyed playing as Silver, and even playing as like Sonic and Shadow sometimes, like that was still kind of fun at points. But the game as a whole, like, it's just a buggy mess, and like the story is so bad too. Like, I am not gonna lie, the story in this game is pretty much why I believe that a lot of Sonic games today don't take the risk of going a heavy story route. I think Sonic 06 was pretty much them seeing that game and being like, all right, we need to like tone the story down a bit. But, like, they tried to do a major storyline with Sonic Forces, but they treated it as if it wasn't a major storyline, which is why that game faulted a lot. But yeah, Sonic 06's story, it was very complicated, very, it was heavy in the story aspect, but it just wasn't executed right. And then on top of that, the gameplay and the game in and of itself just being a buggy mess. And yeah, at parts it's fun. Silver, I actually like playing Silver, but other than that, it wasn't all that fun. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, it pretty much built upon what Sonic Riders was, but they added the zero gravity mechanic for story reasons or whatever. But playing this game on the Wii was so bad, man. Like, this game was not enjoyable at all for me. When I played it when it first came out, just because I was trying to play it with the Wii remote sideways, and just trying to get you to turn with the zero gravity mechanic was so bad. And Zero Gravity in and of itself was just a really terrible game, especially on the Wii. If you play it on the PS2 or something like that, you don't have to worry about the motion controls. Moving on to my E tier list, these are pretty much the worst of the worst Sonic games that I believe have come out like ever. So first up, Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric. I think if you ask anyone who is a gaming personality, and they asked you, what do you think about Sonic Boom, whether you played it or not, they would probably say that game sucks, and that game really does. Once again, there was a lot of bugs. There was a lot of problems with the game in terms of like presentation. And then on top of that, the gameplay was just, oh my god, man, it was just so boring. It was just not fulfilling. It was not fun. It just wasn't anything. Like, and also the story was a little silly. It was just, there's a snake guy called Lyric, and he's trying to like, stop Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. It was just not a good story at all. And personally, this is the worst Sonic game that I've played in recent years. And yeah, I believe I paid full price for it, which I completely regret, especially since after like even like booting the game up for like the first like 5 minutes, you notice that like frames are dropping. The game itself just doesn't look pretty. Like, oh my god, man, the presentation will just will just show you that this game was just not all that good. And you don't even have to play it. So, and then Sonic and the Secret Rings. I love Sonic and the Black Knight, but its predecessor, Sonic and the Secret Rings, not so much. The story, I'll say it was all right. It wasn't completely terrible, but it wasn't anything good. I'll say that. Like, it was definitely on the lower end of mediocre. And then the gameplay, there is a lot of waggling, but you're always on rails. And at least with Sonic and the Black Knight, like, you were like actually like slashing stuff and like actually like having fun when you were moving forward. With this game, it's very much about, you playing as Sonic and you trying to get to the end of the level as fast as you can, which is much more like what a traditional 3D Sonic game would be. But I don't know. I just did not like the whole motion controls and everything like that when it came to Sonic and the Secret Rings. And like, I did not have a good time with that game at all. So that's pretty much it. When it comes to my review of Sonic and the Secret Rings in this little segment here, I just didn't have fun. That's pretty much it. So, those are my pretty much my entire tier list of Sonic games, going from S to E. Obviously, there are so many Sonic games out there. I did not put every single one on here. So if you would like my thoughts on any Sonic game, or just what I want, or just like a one sentence review of any Sonic game ever, just leave it in the comment section below that I did not talk about within this video, and I will give you a proper review on that game from myself. But yeah, that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you guys haven't already, you can subscribe and put new videos up every single Saturday. Follow my social media accounts, Facebook and Twitter, where I put updates about future videos. Twitch.tv live streams will be happening once again. Follow me on there along with Twitter to be notified when I am live. And yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you guys for watching this video once again, and I'll see you guys next time with more videos. Game on, gamers.